The noise never stops, does it? We live in a world that's constantly screaming at us. Notifications buzzing, deadlines looming, opinions flying, everyone telling you what to do, how to live, who to be. And in the middle of all that noise, we've forgotten something essential, the power of silence. The most profound truths in life aren't found in the shouting. They're found in the quiet moments when you finally stop talking long enough to hear what life has been trying to tell you all along. Have you ever noticed how the people who talk the most about success are often the ones who have accomplished the least? While those who have truly mastered their craft, who have built something extraordinary, they don't need to announce it to the world. Their results speak volumes in their silence. I want to ask you something important tonight. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? Not scrolling through your phone, not watching television, not listening to music or podcasts, just you and your thoughts. For most people, the answer is troubling. Days, weeks, maybe even years. We've become afraid of silence because in silence we have to face ourselves. And facing ourselves means confronting the gap between who we are and who we could be. That's uncomfortable. That's why we fill our lives with noise, to avoid that confrontation. But here's the truth I've learned after decades of studying human potential. Everything you want, true success, lasting happiness, genuine relationships, inner peace, all of it comes naturally when you learn to embrace silence first. Tonight I'm not going to give you a 10-step formula or quick fixes. Instead, I want to explore with you how staying silent might be the most powerful action you'll ever take, and how, through that silence, everything else will come naturally. The most extraordinary achievements in human history didn't come from people who were constantly talking about what they were going to do. They came from those who fell silent long enough to listen to their intuition, to observe the world deeply, and then to act with quiet determination. You see, there's a fundamental law of nature at work here, the law of natural growth. Look at a mighty oak tree. Does it make noise as it grows? Does it announce its intentions to the forest? No. It simply draws nutrients from the soil, energy from the sun, and over time it becomes magnificent. Silently, naturally, inevitably. Your life works the same way. When you stop forcing things, when you stop the endless chatter, when you fall silent and align yourself with the natural rhythms of growth and achievement, that's when miracles start to happen. Let me tell you about two types of people I've observed. The first type is always talking about their dreams, announcing their goals to anyone who will listen, seeking constant validation and attention. The second type keeps their ambitions close to their chest, focuses quietly on doing the work, and lets their results speak for themselves. Which type do you think achieves more? I've watched this pattern repeat itself thousands of times. The quiet ones, the silent doers, they're the ones who transform their lives while the talkers are still describing what they're going to do someday. Why is this? It's because words are cheap. Talk depletes energy that could be directed toward action. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, you get a small psychological reward, a little hit of satisfaction as if you've already done it. This reduces your motivation to actually do the hard work. The ancient wisdom traditions understood this. In many monastic orders, practitioners took vows of silence, not because speaking is bad, but because they recognized that in silence we access deeper wisdom. We conserve our vital energy. We develop the power of observation. This isn't just philosophical theory. Modern science confirms it. Studies show that constant noise, including our own talking, elevates stress hormones, reduces cognitive function, and impairs decision-making, while periods of silence boost neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, enhance memory, and improve strategic thinking. Are you beginning to see why silence might be the missing ingredient in your life? Why staying quiet could be the catalyst for everything else to flow naturally? Now, I'm not suggesting you take a vow of silence for the next year. I'm talking about a more subtle but powerful shift in how you approach your life and goals. First, consider the ratio of your talking to your doing. Are you spending more time discussing your plans than executing them? Many of us fall into this trap. We mistake conversation for action. We confuse articulation with achievement. Next, examine the quality of your silence when you do experience it. Is it restful, receptive silence where you're truly present? Or is it just the absence of external noise while your mind continues its frantic internal chatter? True silence isn't just external. It's internal too. It's the quieting of that constant voice in your head that judges, compares, fears, and doubts. This internal silence is where creativity flows. It's where intuition speaks. It's where connections are made between seemingly unrelated ideas. Every major breakthrough in science, art, business, and human thought has come from this place of deep internal silence. Think about those moments when your best ideas come to you. Is it when you're in a noisy meeting, frantically trying to impress others with your words? Or is it in the shower, on a quiet walk, or just as you're waking up? Those moments when your mind finally falls silent? The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thinking. And the quality of your thinking is directly proportional to your ability to access silence. Not just external silence, but that precious internal silence where wisdom resides. Now, let's talk about the other half of our equation tonight. Everything will come naturally. What does this mean? It means that when you stop forcing, pushing, manipulating, and controlling, when you align yourself with natural principles of growth and achievement, success flows to you with far less struggle than you might imagine. Consider a farmer. The farmer doesn't grow crops by pulling on the plants to make them taller. That would only damage them. Instead, the farmer creates the conditions for natural growth, preparing the soil, planting at the right time, providing water and nutrients, protecting from extreme elements. Then the farmer steps back and allows nature to work its magic. Your success works the same way. You can't force yourself to be successful. You can't will yourself to happiness. You can't demand creativity or inspiration. These things emerge naturally when you create the right conditions. And what creates those conditions? Silence, observation, receptivity, patience. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunity effortlessly? It's not magic. It's that they've learned to operate in harmony with these natural laws. They don't waste energy fighting against the current of life. They've learned to surf the waves rather than struggling against them. This is what happens when you stay silent. You conserve energy. You sharpen your powers of observation. You notice opportunities that others miss because they're too busy talking. You develop patience and timing, knowing exactly when to act and when to wait. Think about the greatest leaders you've known. Were they the loudest voices in the room? Or were they the ones who spoke rarely but with such clarity and wisdom that everyone leaned in to listen? True influence doesn't come from dominating conversations. It comes from the quality of your thinking, the integrity of your actions, and the results you produce. All these are enhanced by embracing silence. I've seen this pattern play out in business countless times. The companies that are constantly announcing their next big move, making bold predictions, and seeking media attention, they often flame out just as quickly as they rose. While the companies that quietly focus on serving their customers, improving their products, and building something of lasting value, they're the ones that endure and prosper. The same principle applies to your personal growth. The person constantly posting about their transformation on social media often hasn't transformed at all, while the one who quietly commits to daily improvement without fanfare or announcement experiences true and lasting change. This is the paradox of achievement. The more desperately you chase success, announcing your intentions to the world, the more it tends to elude you. But when you fall silent, focus on personal mastery, and allow success to come as the natural byproduct of your growth, that's when everything changes. Let me ask you another question. What's your relationship with silence? Does it make you uncomfortable? Do you rush to fill it with words, with music, with distraction? That discomfort is telling you something important. It's revealing that you've lost touch with a vital part of yourself, the part that only awakens in silence. Most people are running from themselves. They are afraid to be alone with their thoughts, afraid to confront the gap between their potential and their reality, afraid to hear that still small voice inside that might ask uncomfortable questions about the path they're on. But that voice is your greatest ally. It's your inner wisdom trying to guide you, and it only speaks in silence. Have you noticed how the world conspires to keep you from this silence? Every device, app, and platform is designed to capture your attention, to keep you engaged, scrolling, consuming, reacting. There's a reason for this. In silence, you become sovereign over your own mind again. You break free from manipulation. You start to think for yourself. This is revolutionary in a world built on capturing your attention. The simple act of embracing silence becomes an act of rebellion, a reclaiming of your mental sovereignty. And when you reclaim that sovereignty, something magical happens. You stop being swayed by every opinion, trend, and fear. You develop conviction. You learn to trust yourself. You build an internal compass that guides you more reliably than any external voice ever could. This is when everything starts to come naturally. Your decisions improve because they're coming from a place of clarity rather than reaction. Your relationships deepen because you're truly present rather than performing. Your work transforms because it flows from inspiration rather than imitation. The noise of the world tells you that achievement requires aggressive action, constant hustle, and relentless self-promotion. But nature tells a different story. The mightiest rivers cut through mountains, not through forests, but through consistent flow over time. The most enduring species survive not by dominating their environment, but by adapting to it. The universe expands not through effort, but through the silent operation of natural laws. Your greatest achievements will follow this same pattern. Not forced, not announced, not strained, but natural expressions of who you're becoming in silence. I've watched thousands of people transform their lives using this principle. The business owner who stopped chasing every new strategy and instead fell silent long enough to hear what his customers truly needed. His company tripled in 2 years. The artist who stopped mimicking popular styles and retreated into silence to find her authentic voice. She now has work in galleries worldwide. The father who stopped lecturing his teenagers and instead learned to listen in silence. He rebuilt relationships that seemed irreparably broken. These transformations weren't the result of new techniques or strategies. They came from embracing silence and allowing natural wisdom to emerge. They came from stopping the desperate effort to make things happen and instead creating the conditions for things to unfold naturally. I want to be clear about something important. Staying silent doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean not taking action. Quite the opposite. It means your actions become more purposeful, more aligned, more effective, because they're coming from a place of clarity rather than confusion, wisdom rather than reaction. Think about a skilled martial artist. In the moment before action, there's complete stillness, a gathering of energy, a perfect attention. Then when movement comes, it's decisive, economical, powerful. This is the model for how silence enhances action rather than replaces it. Or consider how a great symphony contains not just notes, but strategic silence. It's the silence between the notes that gives the music its power, its rhythm, its emotional impact. Your life works the same way. Without silence to frame your actions, everything becomes noise. So what does this mean for you? Practically speaking, how do you apply this wisdom to transform your life starting today? First, create pockets of silence in your daily routine. Start small. Perhaps 5 minutes in the morning before reaching for your phone. Sit in silence, not meditating, not planning, not problem solving. Just being present with yourself. Notice how uncomfortable this might feel at first. That discomfort is telling you how much you need this practice. Second, practice listening more than you speak. In your next conversation, challenge yourself to ask 3 questions for every statement you make. Not because you're trying to manipulate the other person, but because you're genuinely interested in understanding rather than being understood. Watch how this transforms your relationships. Third, before making any important decision, create space for silence. Don't immediately react to opportunities or challenges. Give yourself the gift of quiet reflection. You'll be amazed at the clarity that emerges when you stop forcing answers and allow them to arise naturally. Fourth, reduce your digital noise. The average person checks their phone 150 times per day. Each check is an interruption of your natural thought process, a disruption of potential silence. Try designating certain hours as no screen time. Notice how your thinking changes, how your creativity expands. Fifth, practice keeping your goals private. The next time you set an important objective for yourself, resist the urge to announce it to the world. Hold it silently in your heart. Nurture it in private. Let it gather strength in the dark soil of your commitment before it breaks through to the light of public visibility. As you implement these practices, you'll begin to notice subtle but profound shifts. Your mind will become clearer, your emotions more stable, your intuition sharper, your actions more decisive and effective. You'll waste less energy on things that don't matter and direct more power toward what does. And most importantly, you'll start to experience that mysterious quality we're exploring tonight, how everything comes naturally when you stay silent. Natural doesn't mean easy. The butterfly's emergence from the chrysalis is natural, but it still requires struggle. The salmon's journey upstream is natural, but it demands enormous effort. Natural means aligned with deeper principles, following an organic process rather than forcing an artificial one. When you align with these deeper principles through silence, life doesn't become effortless, but it does become less wasteful. You stop swimming against the current. You stop fighting unnecessary battles. You develop an intuitive sense of timing, knowing when to advance and when to wait. This wisdom cannot be taught directly. It must be experienced. That's why all the great wisdom traditions emphasize direct experience over intellectual understanding. You don't learn to swim by reading about swimming. You learn by getting in the water. Similarly, you won't understand the power of silence by merely listening to me talk about it. You'll understand it by practicing it, by making it part of your daily life, by experiencing firsthand how it transforms your perception, your decisions, your results. The good news is that silence is always available to you. No matter how busy your life, how demanding your responsibilities, how noisy your environment, you always have the power to create internal silence, to step back from the chatter of your own thoughts, to create a space between stimulus and response where wisdom can emerge. This is your greatest superpower as a human being, the ability to observe your own mind, to witness your thoughts without being completely identified with them, to access a deeper intelligence beyond your conditioned thinking. When you tap into this superpower through silence, everything else in your life begins to align naturally. Your health improves because you're more attuned to your body's signals. Your work becomes more impactful because you're operating from inspiration rather than desperation. Your relationships deepen because you're truly present rather than constantly distracted. This is the essence of what I'm sharing with you tonight. That silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of something far more powerful. It's the fertile void from which all creation emerges. It's the ground of being from which your most authentic life can grow. I've seen people completely transform their circumstances using this principle. People who were struggling financially, who stepped back into silence long enough to hear their authentic calling, and then found themselves creating value in ways they never imagined possible. People trapped in cycles of toxic relationships who embraced silence long enough to rediscover their worth and then naturally attracted healthier connections. People battling chronic health issues who quieted the noise of stress and worry long enough for their body's natural healing processes to activate. These aren't anomalies or exceptions. They're demonstrations of universal principles that are available to anyone willing to embrace silence and trust the natural unfolding that follows. We live in a culture obsessed with forcing outcomes, with hacking systems, with shortcuts and quick fixes, but the most valuable things in life can't be forced or hacked. They can only be cultivated. They grow at their own pace, according to their own natural time. Your greatest contributions, your deepest fulfillment, your most authentic relationships, these will come not from forcing and striving, but from creating the conditions that allow them to emerge naturally. And the first condition is silence. Think about how a doctor approaches healing. The wise physician knows that she doesn't actually heal the patient. She simply creates the conditions where the body's natural healing intelligence can operate optimally. Remove the obstacles, provide the right nutrients, ensure sufficient rest. Then step back and allow nature to work its miracle. Your life works the same way. You don't force yourself to grow or succeed or heal. You create the conditions where these things happen naturally. And the first, most essential condition is silence, the space where your own inner wisdom can speak to you. This wisdom is always speaking, but few people can hear it above the noise of their busy lives and busier minds. It's like trying to hear a whisper in a hurricane. You have to calm the storm to hear the still, small voice beneath it. When you do hear that voice, when you access that wisdom through silence, it guides you more effectively than any external authority ever could, because it knows you intimately. It understands your unique gifts, your specific challenges, your true purpose. This guidance isn't always what your ego wants to hear. Sometimes it asks you to let go of what you've been desperately holding on to. Sometimes it directs you toward the very challenges you've been avoiding. Sometimes it whispers that the path you've been following isn't truly yours. But this guidance, however challenging, always leads toward greater authenticity, deeper fulfillment, and more natural success. Not success as the world defines it, but success as the natural expression of who you truly are. The world is full of people achieving external success while feeling hollow inside. They followed all the formulas, climbed all the ladders, collected all the trophies, but lost themselves in the process. They never fell silent long enough to discover their authentic path. Instead, they followed the noisy directions of culture, comparison, and conditioning. What if the greatest tragedy isn't failing to achieve your goals, but achieving goals that weren't truly yours to begin with? Goals that came from external expectations rather than internal wisdom. This is the fate of those who never embrace silence. In silence, your authentic goals emerge, not as desperate wanting, but as clear knowing. Not as striving to become something you're not, but as allowing yourself to be what you already are at your core. This is when achievement becomes natural, an expression of your being rather than addition to your having. I want to challenge you tonight. For the next week, dramatically increase the silence in your life. Reduce unnecessary conversation. Minimize digital distraction. Create daily periods of complete quiet. Not as a rigid discipline, but as a gift to yourself. The gift of reconnecting with your own deeper wisdom. During this week, pay close attention to what emerges naturally in this silence. What insights arise? What desires clarify? What distractions fall away? What decisions become obvious? Don't force conclusions. Simply observe with patience and curiosity. You may be surprised by what you discover. Many people realize they've been pursuing goals that don't truly resonate with their authentic self. Others find solutions to problems they've been struggling with for years. Still others experience a profound sense of peace they hadn't known was possible. Whatever emerges for you, trust it. This is your own wisdom speaking. Wisdom that has always been there, but was drowned out by noise. Wisdom that, when followed, leads to the most natural expression of your unique gifts and purpose. The paradox of silence is that it ultimately makes your voice stronger. Not your literal voice, but your authentic expression in the world. When you speak less, but with greater clarity, people listen more. When your actions emerge from silent wisdom rather than noisy reaction, they carry more power. When your work flows from deep inspiration rather than imitation, it stands out in a world of copies. Everything of true value in your life will come more naturally when you embrace silence first. Your health, your work, your relationships, your creativity, your peace of mind, all of these thrive in the fertile soil of silence. Have you noticed the quality of people who have mastered the art of silence? There's a depth to them, an authenticity that's immediately recognizable. They don't need to convince you of their worth. They don't need to dominate conversations. They don't need to constantly assert their opinions. Instead, they listen deeply. They observe carefully. They speak only when they have something meaningful to contribute. And when they do speak, their words carry weight because they come from a place of genuine insight rather than ego or reaction. These people have discovered that silence isn't emptiness. It's fullness. It's not deprivation. It's enrichment. It's not withdrawal from life. It's deeper engagement with what truly matters. I've studied success for decades, and I've come to recognize a pattern. Those who achieve lasting fulfillment aren't those who chase after it most desperately. They're those who cultivate the soil of their inner life through silence, allowing their authentic purpose to emerge naturally. It's about how diamonds are formed, not through force or manipulation, but through the natural processes of pressure and time in the quiet darkness beneath the earth. Your greatest gifts, your deepest wisdom, your authentic purpose in the quiet darkness of silence, away from the spotlight, away from external validation, in the rich soil of your own inner contemplation. This isn't a technique to be mastered, it's a truth to be lived. It's remembering what we've forgotten in our noisy, busy, achievement-oriented culture. That the most profound transformations happen not through force, but through alignment with natural principles. And that alignment begins with silence. When you first embrace silence, you may discover how uncomfortable it makes you feel. You may confront aspects of yourself you've been avoiding. You may hear the critical voices in your head more clearly than ever before. This is normal. It's part of the process. Just as a pond becomes cloudy when you first stir up the bottom, your mind may become turbulent when you first embrace silence. But if you persist, if you continue to create space for silence in your daily life, something remarkable happens. The water clears, the sediment settles, and you begin to see with a clarity you never thought possible. In this clarity, you recognize which paths are truly yours to walk, and which ones you've been following out of conditioning or expectation. You discover which relationships nourish your soul and which ones drain your energy. You understand which pursuits align with your authentic gifts and which ones you've been forcing yourself to undertake. The noise will always be there trying to pull you away from yourself. The opinions, the distractions, the fears, the comparisons, they never stop completely. But you can learn to find the silence beneath the noise. The stillness at the center of motion, the quiet awareness that witnesses it all without being swept away. This is your true home. And from this home, everything else flows naturally, not because you've mastered new techniques or strategies, but because you've remembered who you really are beneath all the noise. You've reconnected with the silent wisdom that has been guiding you all along, if only you would listen. I've watched people transform their entire lives by making this one shift from constant noise to strategic silence, from endless chatter to selective, meaningful expression, from desperate striving to aligned action. The results aren't just external achievements, but a profound sense of rightness, of authenticity, of being at home in their own skin. This transformation is available to anyone willing to embrace silence. Not as a punishment or deprivation, but as the richest gift you can give yourself, the gift of reclaiming your own wisdom, your own clarity, your own authentic path. We live in a world that profits from your noise, from your distraction, from your disconnection, from your own inner guidance. Every app, advertisement, and algorithm is designed to keep you engaged externally rather than internally, to keep you reacting rather than reflecting, to keep you consuming rather than creating. The radical act in such a world is to fall silent, to turn inward, to listen to the wisdom that can only be heard when the external chatter stops. This simple act changes everything. So I invite you tonight with all my heart, stay silent and watch how everything you truly need comes naturally. Not through magical thinking or passive waiting, but through aligned action that flows from your deepest wisdom rather than your noisiest fears. The greatest gift you can give yourself in the world is to discover who you are in silence, then express that discovery through your life. This is the path to natural fulfillment, this is the way to authentic achievement. This is how you create a life that feels like a natural expression of your deepest truth, rather than an exhausting performance designed to impress others. Stay silent. Trust the process. Allow everything to come naturally. Your life is waiting to show you how magnificent it can be when you finally listen.